Nyarlathotep, the crawling chaos. I am the last. I will tell the audient void. Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and gender non-conforming people. My name is Andrew Carr, and welcome to the catch-up period of the Carr-Quest of H.P. Lovecraft. And today, as I said earlier, we are still in the process of catching up with the stories that I missed, because October's been one heck of a busy month for me, with film shoots and such. And today's story is very interesting because it's a story that is also technically a prose poem, but it also introduces what I think is the big bad of the dream cycle. Nine stories in, and we are introduced to the titular antagonist of Nyarlathotep. Now, Nyarlathotep is very interesting because while I remember that the Rats in the Walls video was just kind of a basic sum up of my thoughts on it, but if I remember correctly, Rats in the Walls references Nyarlathotep by name. So this is not the first time that we have met Nyarlathotep on our Carr-Quest of H.P. Lovecraft. Well, I guess it is now saying his name, but it's not the first time that we've met him in a story. So, whereas in the last season, there was definitely a lot more, what was it? It was definitely more focused on, like, Arkham, Kingsport, Innsmouth, Miskatonic University, Cthulhu, all that kind of sort of stuff that we mostly associate with Lovecraft. The dream cycle, I think, has been a lot more sort of fantastical. And with that, my main point is that whereas Cthulhu and Yog-Sothoth are definitely more the antagonists of the last season, this season we are focusing more on Nyarlathotep. And Nyarlathotep is very interesting as a character because he is a part of the gods. He is one of the Lovecraftian gods. So he is up there with Cthulhu, Azathoth, Yog-Sothoth, the one that's like the mother one with all the young, that I refuse to say its name, but Hoster, that's a different one, but Nyarlathotep is interesting, very, very interesting, and the reason why is that unlike other gods in the Lovecraft pantheon, which they exist outside of the cosmos. You know, they're just kind of just hanging out in the deep part of the universe that if minds tried to comprehend them, it would drive you mad and stuff. Nyarlathotep's a lot more active, actively visiting worlds, actively interacting with humanity in various forms. He's a shapeshifter, so he takes like different forms and finds different ways to like torment humanity. So he's also kind of a messenger of the gods, basically. He's a sort of a liaison between the Lovecraftian chaos at the center of the universe and our reality as we conceive it. So, this is a real bad dude we're going up against, is my point. This is a real bad dude. So, we will be seeing, as I've said before, I believe that Nyarlathotep is one of the big bads of the H.P. Lovecraft universe. We will be seeing him again. And it's interesting also because as for the actual story, and not Nyarlathotep in and of himself, it's just kind of Nyarlathotep walking around societies and driving people mad, and like told from the perspective of a narrator who was in one of the cities that Nyarlathotep visited. And Nyarlathotep's also very interestingly portrayed here, because here in this poem, he comes in the form of an an Egyptian pharaoh, and he's like making things out of glass and metal. He's he's like doing almost magic tricks, but it's also like horrific, and people who are like, word of mouth spreads like, oh, you have to see Nyarlathotep, or don't see Nyarlathotep, what he'll show you, he knows things from other worlds. And so then Nyarlathotep comes to the city, and the narrator of the story pretty much kind of calls Nyarlathotep's BS. He kind of just is like, this is just kind of magic tricks. This is just static electricity. This is just this. This is just that. And then Nyarlathotep casts them out and slowly drives them all insane. Um, so, and yeah, that's basically the story. Again, it's a prose poem. It's not a straightforward Lovecraft. It's not a straightforward short story, rather. It's more of an actual just like poem. Um, uh, so I'm not sure quite how to review it as a prose poem, but as a story, I think it's really interesting because the because it is just kind of about Nyarlathotep and how Nyarlathotep is he's the crawling chaos. He is the one that will who drives societies mad and humanity mad, and actively doing it. Not like how Cthulhu and Cthulhu, Yog-Sothoth are kind of more. It's more, if you gaze upon them, they will drive you mad, as well as the fact that Cthulhu, Yog-Sothoth, all these other deities don't really seem to see humanity as much, so they don't really interact with humanity. There are a few times, in Call of Cthulhu, there was the whole thing at the end with the ship and Cthulhu pursuing them, and Dunwich Horror, Yog-Sothoth had a huge hand in the events of that. But yeah, so so as I've said before, Nyarlathotep is definitely a character to watch out for. We will be seeing him again in like Dream Quest of Unknown Kadath and a few other stories in the dream cycles. So this is not going to be the last we have seen of our good friend Nyarlathotep. As for the story itself, again, I'm not quite sure how to review poetry, but again, I like the story. I like that it is kind of a basic story. It's just kind of introduces Nyarlathotep. It sort of explains what he does. It kind of has a little bit of it very much shows society is very bleak. As I said from the excerpt earlier, there is a time of social political upheaval. People are tense. People are just wary and uncertain, and that's when Nyarlathotep strikes. So what I'm basically saying is this a fitting story for the current age we're living in? Maybe. I don't know. I like to think of society maybe a bit more optimistically than maybe H.P. Lovecraft does. Or I think this was written in like the early 20s, so I don't know. I don't know what I'm really talking about now, but no, I like it though. I think this is definitely one of the first Lovecraft stories that I read. So I think that I have read this story before, and I'm like, oh, I remember the basics of it, but reading it again, there were sort of details that I caught on to more the second time. So, yeah, so Nyarlathotep, the prose poem. I'll give it a solid A plus, a high A. So yeah, again, sorry if this seemed a bit rambly and more just talking about Nyarlathotep as a character and as a presence. Um, but yeah, I mean it is literally a 3-page poem, so I'm not quite sure what else to really say. I do kind of like the ending where it actually is sort of describing the insanity. I do kind of prefer it Rats in the Walls though, where it just kind of descends into just kind of nonsense. But anyway, our next story after Nyarlathotep is the Nameless City, which on the back says, and I quote, "Death lies beneath the shifting sands," in a story linking the dream cycle with the legendary Cthulhu mythos. So we are going back to the Cthulhu mythos from the first season with the next story, the Nameless City. So until we visit the Nameless City, this has been a very interesting story to read. But until next time, this has been the Carr-Quest of H.P. Lovecraft. I have been your host, Andrew Carr, and I'll see y'all, ladies, gentlemen, and gender nonconforming people, next time in the next episode with the Nameless City. So until then, see ya.